I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Danielle Park, editor of the popular blog Juggling Dynamite and president of Venable Park Investment Council Incorporated. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Jim.
The Energy East project by TransCanada Pipelines has been canceled. Is that good news for Canada?
No, I don't think it's great news for, getting a premium for our oil. As you know, our Canadian Select crude trades at a discount, and part of that is the transportation issue. I think it's that pipeline would have been wasted funds in the medium and longer term. I think in the short run, it would have helped us get product to market and, sort of fight for the dying dollars of fossil fuels, because the whole world is pumping them out now, hoping that, we're going to use more of them, when in fact the trends are all going the other way. So I think, I realize it's a shock and it's a sadness to people who are worried about the economy and saying, what are we going to do for GDP here, because frankly our exports have been falling. We just had a decline, third consecutive decline in our exports in Canada, and this is only the second time in the last 30 years that we've had a decline of 10% or more in 3 months outside of a recession. So it's a warning signal. It alarmed the Bank of Canada again. Their concern was they wanted to start hiking rates to curb the abuse of credit in the country, because we have such overvalued property markets and indebted households. So the Bank of Canada wanted to hike rates, as we've talked before. And what we were saying all along was, yes, but the economy is not really that strong. And if you start hiking, you're going to, put a crimp in the housing market, which has happened, which is also necessary, but this is all painful necessary, right? Because what have we got to fall back on? The hope was, well, we can, pump a bunch of oil out and sell it, and, this is just another sort of impediment to that growth story that people were hoping. But as I say, in the medium and longer term, I think they would have been sunk costs or wasted, more sunk costs wasted. What we really need to do is double down on the alternative energy and infrastructure. And that's something that actually Alberta's been doing a lot of in the past couple of years. There's a great movement out there to, get houses to net zero, to do solar and to implement wind, and we need to really get it through people's head that is the future. You want good jobs, that's where they are. This trying to, Trump talking about bringing coal back from the dead, that's all the wrong direction. And I think also putting in, billions of dollars into infrastructure to support the production, extraction, and transportation of fossil fuels here is also in the wrong direction. So as I say, short-term pain, not great, I get it, but in the end it would have been wasted money. So we have to stop wasting money on short-term focus and start thinking about what is going to take us into the future with sustainable products that, everyone can use and improve the standard of living and life of everyone around.
The Canadian federal government keeps bringing in new policies that make it harder and harder to buy a home. Could they actually cause a recession, even though their regulations, they hope, will prevent a recession caused by housing?
Well, this is the conundrum, unfortunately, that politicians and bankers pump credit like crazy to try and expand consumption demand, and that worked in spades this time. We have never had as much, stimulus from monetary and fiscal efforts in the world's history as we've had in the past 8 years. We've had $15 trillion of money pumping into the financial system, and that has inflated overvalued assets in every single class that's available for capital to flow. So we have had this, we are considered another UBS study, Jim, this week. I don't know if you noticed that, had Canada as, actually Toronto as the #1 bubble city for housing in the world, the most precariously perched for the downside and the give back and the damage that that kind of bubble does. And ironically, the truth is that every recession in history, the worst ones that have ever happened, have been precipitated by a massive overshoot in the housing sector, because it entices people to reach for more house than they can afford, to take on prohibitive amounts of debt, and then the aftermath, the hangover, if you will, from that party is so long and hard to recover from. And historically, those have been the longest, deepest recessions. So now we've got all these world authorities sounding the alarm bell about Canada and our housing market and how insanely valued it is, how over-levered the households are, how multiples of income is just ridiculous and off the charts. So of course the government wants to do something or look like they're being prudent. The public pressure was rising to say, oh my goodness, and the public never really comes at it from this is so much risk to us financially. They come at it from hey, my kid can't get a place to live, or I can't afford to live downtown anymore. All the artists are moving to the country because no one can afford to live in the city. So those kind of social concerns are what typically brings public pressure to say stop with this asset inflation. And that's what's happened. So those forces were all leaning on governments and central banks, or in Canada particularly, to do something, to curb this massive inflation. Unfortunately, now, yes, that is likely to cause a recession. However, recessions are an actually naturally reoccurring part of the economic cycle and the credit cycle. So to think we can avoid them is the problem, right? We cannot avoid them. They are the give back, pay down period. They are the natural equalizer or correcting mechanism to irrational exuberance. They are something that we need as humans, because we humans have a really hard time with controlling our animal instincts and desire to just blow our brains out on credit all the time. So we do need the payback period where everyone gets more sober and says, oh dear, we can't keep spending the way we've done. We've taken on all this stuff. We have to pay for it for a while here before we can start making other plans. So this is all a natural part of it. But because they try all the time, and in this last 8 years with, as I say, the greatest force ever, they have tried to delay and suppress and push off, so we never get to the payback period again. And all that's done is make us that much more dangerously perched for, as I say, the deepest, longest recession we've probably seen since at least the 1980s. When we also had, if you'll recall, a massive overvaluation in housing and huge credit abuse and all sorts of sketchy stuff going on in the banking system and the real estate market and the, evaluators. Everyone was sort of being pushed to do these, really sketchy deals. And that always comes back to haunt us. So, yes, the government is going to be probably blamed for bringing on the recession, which was, as I say, an inevitable part of this cycle. But they should really be blamed for not so much triggering rational rules and bringing things back down to earth, because that's, looking ahead legislation and constraints is actually something we need to keep a system healthy. What their real fault is trying to inflate it and keep it going so long in the first part, underwriting so much debt, CMHC, everyone was feeding at the trough, so to speak. And as the saying goes, pigs get slaughtered. And unfortunately, I think that's where we are right now. So yes, I think we're likely to have a recession this time that's deeper and longer than we've seen for some time.
We'll have more with Danielle Park right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Danielle Park. Danielle, the Bank of Canada says it's concerned because there are very few new Canadian businesses being created. They say they can't explain why. Could one of the reasons be people are scared of the new Trudeau tax plans for small business?
No, I actually don't think that's the case. I think that it is a function of bad allocation decisions. I think that people have become so encumbered by consumer debt, for example. So let's think back. I've started a couple of businesses in my life, and typically they're very capital intensive at the outset. You either have to have savings to use, right, while you build up something before it can start paying you an income, never mind hiring other people, or you have to take on debt in order to get that business started. Unfortunately, most people today are carrying consumer debt. So it makes them much less apt to have savings to start businesses and much less apt to be able to borrow more in terms of commercial credit. When your credit cards and lines of credit and you have no net equity in your home and all that stuff has already been used, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able or have the room, the resilience, the ability to go out and start a new venture. And I think that that's the case right from the time people come out of school, whether college, university, even high school kids have debt today when they come out, and they're not getting the great, apprenticeship opportunities for a whole bunch of factors, but another one being that the old folks are staying in the jobs longer because they, too, are encumbered by a lot of consumer debt today. A lot of 60-pluses still have mortgages on their home. So they're not retiring. They're not opening the spots up for the new potentially entrepreneurial energy to come into the workforce. And people are so encumbered with the debt that they've taken on. And again, through non-productive consumption, right? Through buying cars right out of high school and making all these payments, easy credit, credit cards, lines of credit, and then, just trying to fund student education. All these things have really put people in a very difficult position. So I do think that that's a major factor for why we're seeing less new business development. And it's interesting, the Trump tax plan that's being brought in, the main beneficiaries of that, or the proposed plan, who knows if it'll get passed, but the proposed plan is to what? To lower the tax rate for the most successful, wealthiest corporations in the world. And again, you get no trickle-down effect when you keep enriching and enriching and enriching the same 1% of the population with superfluous funds that they already have everything they need. They already can't consume more than they're consuming. You're getting zero trickle down. You're getting zero expansion on that, multiple. There's no multiplier effect on that. And so I think, again, the tax changes have to come across the board, and always with a view to not helping the largest companies, but how do we get entrepreneurial spirit, how do we get people out of debt so they can actually be creative and think of new ways to do business. I think those are the key things. Now, I know there's all this attention on, the Trudeau tax plan and how it might impact smaller professionals and people that have incorporated. But again, if they've been funneling money to their children and spouse in this way, when the spouse and children have no role or active job or are not actually doing anything in the business, it isn't something that's appropriate. And it is something we should review in this time when we have such scarce resources, all these demands, all these requirements, all these people expecting entitlements and benefits, and lesser people putting money in the pot. So there is a massive problem. It's not just in Canada, it's worldwide. But we really have to get more creative and more, harsh on some of these abuses, because again, there's no multiplier effect in letting family members take money from companies that aren't actually doing anything in the company. We have to have a more realistic take on what small business can do and where it can be abused. And I think in being more realistic about that and making sure that we're not, as I say, allowing too many dollars to be wasted in concentrated pots and then trying to spread it out more, we're likely to have greater resilience in small business and entrepreneurship in this country. And I think that's really important.
Well, in Britain, I believe they promise if you start a business, they're not going to tax you for 5 years. And they want to make sure that you're making a profit before they start taking money out of that business.
Well, truthfully, that's what happens anyway, because, again, having started a few businesses, what happens is you put in money, you pay bills, you don't have net profit for a long time. And if you don't have net profit, you don't pay tax anyway, right? And in Canada already, the corporate tax rate on the first $500,000 of net income is 15% and less. So we're already talking extremely low. And the same in the U.S. The tax rate in the U.S., they talk about, the top line numbers, but if you look at the actual tax rate that the U.S. corporations are paying, they're paying some of the lowest tax rates in the free world already. So this idea, again, that you can give this, even more excess cash flow to this one group, 15% is already a remarkably low tax rate, and you already get preferential treatment on different things. So I think, we have to stop, as I say, just funneling money to these same couple of people and start thinking about multiplier effect through the economy, through the job market, how to get people out of debt, get them building savings so they have money to actually invest, not speculate on overvalued assets. Everyone get rich quick schemes, but actually things that will build value.
We'll have more with Danielle Park right after this.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the U.S. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the U.S. and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Danielle Park. Danielle, a survey found that the vast majority of people under 50 in Canada want to see sustainable energy. Is that possible, and why would they have that point of view? I guess they have more of an eye on the future than folks ready to retire.
Oh, I think absolutely that young people, they get it. First of all, they, as we've just discussed, they see that there's a lot of, not a lot of great opportunity for them. They tend to be more socially aware. They tend to be more conscious of the fact that, this world has to last more than 20 years for them. This world has to last, potentially 50, 60, 70 years for them. So they care about whether we're doing things that are going to bring us, a cyclone or hurricane or earthquake every other week and totally disrupt everything that people are trying to do, or whether there's something smarter, both for sustainability in the natural world and for providing, great opportunity for new businesses and new jobs that will be supportive of life and health and good growth, and not extracting everything so that we're all left with rubble. And so, I think it makes perfect sense. It was a Pew poll that found that 70% of those over 50 think renewable energy is a great opportunity. We need to double down there. And actually, even just of the general population in the U.S., something like 67% said, they think that the country should really focus on renewables. But you've got, of course, a government administration there that is doing everything it can to reverse that. Luckily, they're not being very successful because a lot of this work, as I say, is done at the individual level as well as the community level, as well as states, municipalities. And on that front, we've seen a redoubling of efforts by mayors and local leaders and people who say, okay, we really have to, wake up and smell the coffee here. We really need to get on with it. And I think if anything positive comes out of the Trump rhetoric and efforts to roll all this back, I think that the positive thing is that it actually shakes people to awareness. If you have there's a certain complacency that we've all had of thinking, well, those problems will be solved by someone else, or governments are going to figure out how to sort all that out. But really, it comes down to, as I say, this individual and community level, and a decision, as I said, they're doing in many communities, including in Alberta right now, to say, hey, let's fit our house with solar panels, because if we get zero energy bills or money by selling back to the grid, that's money in our pocket. That's money not coming out of our pocket. That makes sense for us. It makes sense on an economic basis, but it also makes sense on a sustainability basis for the future. So I think there's so much wonderful things happening there, and there's a greater awareness, but I really think that having Trump sort of shocks people to action, and I think that's probably a positive thing.
Danielle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Danielle Park, editor of the popular blog Juggling Dynamite. Her website is jugglingdynamite.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. If you have any questions for us or our guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.